Hey friends, welcome to another Terribly Honest with David Tenson podcast. I actually recorded a couple other episodes, but the wind was so bad I couldn't press publish. So I will re-record those another time. But today I wanted to talk to you about chaplaincy. I work a couple days a week as a chaplain in an aged care facility. Now, everything I'm going to share here is just personal opinion. It doesn't reflect the opinion of my employer. I'm owning everything I say here. So that's my little preface and disclaimer. Not that it's anything I'm going to say bad, but I hear people do that at the start of podcasts. I think it makes sense. But I've been in that job now for just over 2 years. And I started working at this facility at the same time I started my PhD. So about a month apart, I'd started my PhD and then I gained employment as a chaplain. The facility I work for here on the Sunshine Coast has 120 beds, so there's 120 residents, and for those listening internationally, in Australia we call it a residential aged care. So this is live-in aged care, 24-hour care for aged care residents, and our residents can we have residents in their 60s all through to residents who are just over 100. Majority would be in their 80s and 90s. So I work there a couple days a week, and the organisation I work for, Lutheran Services, have a number of aged care nursing homes. I'll call them racks from now on, so you know it's residential aged care, but they have a number of these rack facilities, and the Lutheran Church employs chaplains to go in, and it's kind of a ratio thing is the way that they run it. So for every 20 residents, there is a 1 day of chaplaincy that's attributed to that facility and budgeted in. So I work alongside another chaplain when I'm in. She works 5 days a week, not full days, but five days a week. So every time I'm in, she's in, and I have a fantastic colleague. We get along really well. She's just a great chaplain. She's been doing it more years than I have, and yeah, I think we work really well together, and she's a joy to work with. I'm very, very grateful. I know a lot of, as a side note, research shows that your workmates, work colleagues, are actually one of the biggest factors for happiness and satisfaction in work, beyond pay, beyond a whole lot of things. That if you have a good workmate, it makes such a huge difference, and it does for me. I'm very, very grateful to be working with my colleague in chaplaincy. The facility I work at, as far as aged care facilities go, from what I hear from others that work in the field, and I've family that work in this field as well, the facility that I work at is very good. The culture, staffing, the leadership are exceptional. So I'm trying to paint a picture here that I'm really fortunate and blessed to work in a really amazing team. I'm part of a really, really fantastic team of healthcare professionals, directors, managers, the admin staff, the maintenance staff, the nurse practitioners, the nurses, the care staff, the cleaners. Everyone there is just fantastic. It's one of the best workplace cultures I've been in for a while. So I'm giving you all that preface because aged care work as a chaplain, or in anyone who works in aged care, can be tough and challenging as well as rewarding. I think I've shared this on a previous podcast, but out of the 120 residents we have with us at any moment, we had last year, I'm just going to say year, we go from All Saints Day to All Saints Day where we run a memorial. We had 46 deaths. So we have about a third of the facility turns over in by way of death. And that's the thing about this particular chaplaincy role, is that every 10 days somebody has passed away. And so the large role of a chaplain in aged care is to be there towards end of life. We see every resident at least once a month. Those who are at end of life, we see regularly. We will see them every day. We will be with them sometimes for quite some time, or their family for quite time before the death, and then sometimes after as well, if they have memorials or the family want to come in and talk. And the core role of a chaplain in aged care facilities, and I know this might translate into other type of chaplaincy as well, is that you're there to be a companion. And if you've read my last book, Descent to Everything, in one of the chapters I speak about Alan Wolflet's 11 tenets of companioning. And companioning is this kind of the core approach that we as chaplains take towards our job. And you can look up these 11 tenets of companioning, but and I've talked about them before, they're in my book. But they are things like, you're not there to fix somebody, you're there to be a witness. You're not there to pull somebody out of their despair and difficulty, you're there with them in that. It's very much I'm beside you, I'm a companion in this difficult time. And one of the reasons that approach is really good, particularly in aged care and end of life, is because everybody dies. Everybody must die at some point in life. And particularly in aged care, healthcare, there are some things that residents are diagnosed with that simply cannot be addressed or fixed. For example, if there was spreading of cancer or particular tumours or particular things that in a healthy middle-aged person, young person, you might cut out and have an operation with and recover and get chemo for, etc. Because the entire body's so weak and other things aren't well, a kind of organ failure is inevitable. In fact, I heard the other day that 94% of people die from organ failure and the other 6% from accidents. So companioning is a really good approach here, because we can give people a good death, but we can't promise them a good life anymore. When I say good death, I mean the medical staff come in and they're given appropriate drugs. We do everything that we can to make this last season, days, week, months of their life meaningful and as pain-free as possible, giving them dignity, love and respect in their final moments. And some weeks in that job are really hard, and some weeks are funny and fun and come back with wonderful stories, and then there are weeks that are pleasant. I mean, like any other job, it has its ebbs and flows, but it is the kind of job that is an emotional labour. I know for our care staff, for example, who do a lot of lifting and moving of the residents. It can be quite a heavy, laborious job and something that is constant. In chaplaincy, the fitness that we have to bring to the job is not necessarily physically fit, although you do a bit of walking. You have to be emotionally fit. You have to be spiritually fit and on top of things. That's what's required of you. And it's why a lot of chaplains don't work full-time. I know a number of people, colleagues at the facility that I work at, in the organisation I work at, we do meet with other chaplains 3 times a year, and we have a fantastic director and wonderful leadership that are above us too, that really support us very well as chaplains. We have paid supervision. We have things that are granted to us and given to us by the organisation so that we can get help. And we're on salary. We get leave and holidays and those kind of things. So all the perks and benefits that come from working with a large organisation, because the role can be taxing. Now, everybody, of course, is different. I have always been highly empathetic, and so managing that around pastoral kind of work or chaplaincy, companioning work with those that are in the last season of their life is something I've been learning. That's a new arena. I've been around a lot of people who are, particularly when I did a lot of the inner healing work, a lot of the advanced pastoral care work, and then in assistant and associate pastoral roles. Of course, you're journeying with people in their faith, in their spirituality, in their lives, in their relationships, etc. But in most cases, these people weren't at death's door. They weren't. This wasn't the last bus stop on the route, and so it's very different here in that no one is leaving. Everybody that comes to the facility, well, 98% of them leave through an ambulance, where they will often go to the hospital if something's really bad at the end and they'll die in the hospital, or they leave with some undertakers. So it's a really different kind of job, but it's also an amazing privilege. You, as chaplains in our facility, we run devotional services, which is we play some specific worship songs, music that is kind of made for, it's big text on the screen. We play all these songs on the screen, think of karaoke, but they're old hymns that they know. A lot of them will know. We do that and share a little Bible story or a thought, or sometimes we involve the residents in doing this as well. We also have a Lutheran pastor, a wonderful man who comes over and does a communion service for the residents also once a month. We facilitate other faith practitioners, priests, etc. that might come. So some of the Catholic priests will come for the Catholic people, or my colleague takes them to Mass. So ultimately, a chaplain, their role is to provide spiritual support for the residents. And this doesn't necessarily mean religious or Christian support. One of our roles and part of the national standards around well-being and aged care talks about the provision of spiritual care. And this can be anything. So as a chaplain, I really don't pray with a lot of people day to day at all, because a lot of our residents don't have an active faith. And you have to understand, like about a third, I think around a third or so of our residents have some form of dementia or cognitive decline. So this makes any discussion or any practice around faith, around Christ, anything really, very, very different to what you might have around people with no cognitive impairment. So we have to look for things that are spiritual connections to life, to themselves, to animals, to nature. Maybe they do have other religious faith as a background. Maybe the most spiritual thing that they have in their life is their family, or if they have dementia, an imagined family or an imagined job that they go to. So our job is to companion and foster connection to life, things that are spiritual, that are life-giving, but not always necessarily religious. So I have a resident who, when I came on board, he saw the little cross that I wear and the chaplaincy badge, and he goes, "Don't have to visit me, don't have to talk about God, I'm an atheist." I said, "That's fine, totally fine, we can talk about anything you like." And so when I arrive, we talk about research and academia, and I bring my dog in, and this resident absolutely loves it. And so that is a form of spiritual care, because you're bringing meaning, purpose. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi. Because you're bringing meaning and purpose to somebody's life. And so that's a really cool part of the chaplaincy role. You're not there to make disciples for Jesus. You're not there to proselytize or convert people. All of that is not part of the job. If it was, I wouldn't be in it. But to be a companion and somebody in some of the last seasons of their life, and do what you can to bring a sense of spirituality, of meaning and purpose to their lives, is such a key and wonderful part of that job. Is it hard when residents die? Sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes because I think the average, I can't find the quote for this, but the last I heard is the average, so this is between the longest and the shortest term, the average length of time somebody's in residential aged care before they die is 22 months. Now, we have people that are with us who are end of life, who've emptied a hospital bed and come to us and for end of life, and they might just be with us for a week, and I hardly get to know them. And then there are residents who I'm journeying with now that I've got to know really well over the last 2 years, and so that's harder when they pass away. Sometimes the dying in some ways is a gift to them, and others because these people are in pain and suffering, and when they passed, it's bittersweet in many ways. You know they'll be missed, and those that love them mourn them. At the same time, it comes as a kind of relief in life, because they had no quality of life in many regards, and so it's a gift and a relief in those ways. I have had some difficult deaths this year that I've been witness to, not the actual dying moment, but the slow loss. And then we have these sudden losses too. You think somebody might be around the facility for quite a while, and there'll be a catastrophic event like a heart attack or a stroke or something, and by the time I'm on shift again, they're gone. You get an email to say that this person's passed away. So aged care chaplaincy is not something I saw myself going into, but I'm really grateful for the experience. I'm grateful to be working with a really good organisation and colleagues and teams. It's just really interesting to be pastoring a community that where a third of them rotate and die every year. And look, to be honest, there are some residents that I hardly get to know at all. And oftentimes it's because of these people have dementia or they're non-verbal or a whole combination of things, and we pay them a visit, and we might say a silent prayer for them if it was requested. Or we just touch base and give them a smile and be present for them. And then there's others whom you sit by their bedside and you have long talks about life and wishes and losses and grief and things that they wish to be different, or they just want to talk at you for an hour, and you're there to listen and to be a companion as part of their journey. And all those things are great privileges. I didn't see myself in that role, but I'm so grateful for the exposure to this side of life. And as a result, if I tell somebody I might be playing pickleball or I'm at uni and they ask what I do for work, and I say I work at the uni and I also work as an aged care chaplain. By midlife, most people have lost one or two parents, or most definitely grandparents. And they'll have a story and they want to share that with you. And it's opened some amazing doors to some really great friendships and connections with people outside of the facility. Again, playing pickleball at uni over coffee, and it's also really helped shaped my view on death, on having a good death. I'm so much more exposed to it, and I talk about this in Descent to Everything in my last book. Is that the denial of death that I once lived with is most definitely gone. I think I would be close to probably close to 100 deaths that I've been, 100 lives that have now gone, and deaths. Sometimes you are there when they die or are close to die in the room. Sometimes you'll pay a visit in the evening, and then by the morning they're passed, but their bodies are still there with the family. And so I've learned this amazing, so much around death and the death trade, the laws and things that you can do if somebody close to you passes away, what you're allowed to do with the body, what helps with mourning and grief, all kinds of stuff, really fascinating. And so as a result, this year at the University of the Sunshine Coast, where I study, I get to, a friend of mine, and I started death cafes. And death cafes are a very loosely held but intentional time and space that's carved out, where you drink tea and coffee, eat cake, and you talk about death. And so we've held those on campus. We've held 3 this year, and we're going to keep doing them next year. A couple of people, oh, you're the death cafe guy. And so, again, part of my role in chaplaincy has allowed me just to say, wow, I mean, we all die. It's really important to talk about our death, other people's death, the death of things, instead of being part of a society that is bent on progress and speed and moving forward and pretending nobody dies. I've talked about it before, and again in my book I talk about it, but referencing Ernest Becker's book, The Denial of Death. Understanding that in the West we hardly see dead bodies. I mean, I had drinks with some old school friends, so we're all 47, 48 last weekend, and one of them, one of my friends works in the police force and has for decades, and the other guy works in IT, and somehow it came up, bodies, and I said, I'm used to it. I never really saw any dead people before I started this job. And I looked at my police friend and I said, and you? He goes, I've seen way too many. And I pointed at my friend who works in IT. I said, what about you? He goes, nah, never. I've never seen anyone dead. And that's common, right? Unless your job or a small pocket in life exposes you to it. Most people in the West have nothing to do with death and dead bodies. We don't kill and slaughter the animals that we eat. Unless you like fishing occasionally or you're a hunter. Most of us, all the death and all the killing is either on the screens or in a factory or just away from me. And so this is often denial that comes in. If you work in sectors in healthcare, in police service, for example, or you work in funerals, etc., there's no denying, there's no escaping. Death is just part of your everyday life. And so in the death cafes, you basically just get together. We carve out 90 minutes, 2 hours or so. Somebody will go around the room and do a check-in, ask people what brought them there. And then, depending on how many people with us, we'll break into smaller circles and just talk about our experience and thoughts, maybe even wishes around death. And it's really curious and it's wonderful. And to be honest, it's really life-giving, it's sobering, it's anchoring. You think about some things in your life in light of the weeks that you have left. I think there was a book called 4,000 Weeks or something. If you live to 80, you only get to live around 4,000 weeks. And so I'm well over. I'm over half of that. I've got less than 2,000 of weeks of my life left. And it's a sobering thought to know that it all runs out. But it's also really interesting practically to think about if I do die, and my family, of course, I hope and think that they'll miss me and mourn me, and that'll be difficult. But what things can I make easier? Can I make some of my wishes easier to understand what I'd like at the funeral, what songs I might like, what I want to be buried or cremated if I was, what are other options out there? Are there green burials available? Where would I want my ashes spread? But also, what have I got my will and testament in order? Then things like accessing bank accounts and having a next of kin and an enduring power of attorney organised. All these little things that once it happens can make the process of missing you a lot easier for everybody else around you, because unfortunately we do hear stories around just red tape and couldn't access their accounts, couldn't access the super. The man might have had all the money in his name and the bank can't hand it over. I mean, it just gets really complicated, but could have all been sorted out lawfully and legally and even unofficially. Even things like what's going to happen with all the photos and everything in your phone when you die. You can't be FaceTime or whatever anymore. There's a whole lot of complications that can come out. So that's what we talk about at Death Cafe as well. If you want to know more about Death Cafes, there's a website, deathcafe.com. They hold them all over the world, all the time and online. They're not necessarily the best place to house and to deal with grief. We let people know at the start. This may not be the best place to have to come for some kind of recovery or therapy around grief, because that there are specialists who do that. But besides that, we can talk about most other things. So anyway, that's it. Thanks for joining me on this walk. You can hear the beautiful birds here in the background. It's warming up. Chaplaincy, if you're thinking about doing it, What should you study? Let me finish on this. Where I work with Lutheran services, they and other chaplaincy, I know some of the Defence Force and others ask people to do something called CPE, which is clinical pastoral education. And I think in Australia or in America as well, there are 4 levels. So clinical pastoral education, they're courses that you can do to be trained in chaplaincy, and people I think in defence or in government kind of roles, like government funded sort of roles in hospitals or in defence, will often ask people have done some CPE training, which is very different to theological training or Bible college or seminary, etc. Very, very different to that. More personal, more heart-centered, a bit more counselling and psychological, and less sort of theological. You don't have to be a genius or a big trained pastor or have years of theological training under your belt to do chaplaincy at all. In fact, sometimes it gets in the way. I find if I bring out anything that is slightly more advanced than Jesus loves you, this I know, in a devotion or service, or bringing out a basic story about God's love and presence with us, anything complex goes over everybody's head. You're lucky to have at your devotional service of 20 people there, 2 people who are able to keep up with you. So it is very much a ministry of presence, very much a ministry of companioning. And it's just, if you're thinking of doing it, give it a go. Get some training, volunteer somewhere if you can. A lot of places would be happy to have volunteers, and see if it's something you're into. See if it's something you feel called to at this time as well, and you may even get paid employment in in that area as well. All right, thanks for joining me.